So how do you handle, like, if an athlete does come to you and let's say they do something like rugby, or they do, let's say they even do something like bodybuilding, how would you handle that person in terms of what types of foods they should eat as far as meat? Is it just pure ribeyes? Do you have them include organs? Do you have them include any type of supplementation, or how do you have them handle that?
Yeah, generally just meat. So I think ribeye is a good balance of meat and fat.
So like Sean Baker's just like, he just eats meat. So you the same way, just meat.
Yeah, I just eat meat. 99% of what I eat is just beef, and like fatty beef, like New York's or ribeyes. I'll make a brisket every now and then. Very rarely I'll have like some pork belly if I want to increase the fat content. I do like getting enough fat. I think that fat's an important nutrient. I don't think it's just calories. There are essential nutrients that are in fat, like fat soluble vitamins, but also just the fat itself. Fat itself, cholesterol itself are essential nutrients. And so, I want to get enough fat. I want to get enough protein. I want to get enough of all the things that my body needs. So I think starting with that, just fatty meat is very good. If you're not getting enough fat, you maybe add in some like grass-fed tallow or something like that. Butter, if you can tolerate it. Not everyone is good with dairy. I seem to be okay. So sometimes I'll melt some butter into a steak if I'm eating that. And then just eating intuitively. I don't think you have to have organs. I don't really eat organs. Every now and then I'll have some liver. I think I've had liver 3 times in the last decade. Yeah. The Inuit didn't really eat organs. That was something the polar explorers found, like Vilhjalmur Stefansson, who was a professor at Harvard in ethnology and lived with the Inuit for like 10 years, 12 years, learned their language, learned their culture, and lived as a carnivore with them. And he was saying, like, we didn't eat anything except meat and fish. And you had to get the fat with the meat, and that made perfect nutrition. That gave a complete diet. And they even asked him, there's old black and white interviews with him. It's like, okay, what about organs? You have to get organs to get all these nutrients. And he's like, nope, that's a myth. You don't need organs. The Inuit don't need organs. We didn't need organs. I think if you're coming from a nutritionally deficient state, or you're eating like a standard diet, organs are great because they're very nutrient dense, and they're going to catch you up. Like taking a supplement to try to bolster your levels back up. But I think if you're in a steady state where your levels are good, that you will maintain proper health and vitamin and mineral levels appropriately with just skeletal muscle, meat, and fat. So I just tell them, get rid of absolutely everything besides meat and water, and don't be shy of the fat. Eat enough fat. How do you know if you're eating enough fat? Well, your body has a limited capacity for absorbing fat. You make bile from your liver that's stored in your gallbladder, and then that's secreted when you're eating fat. You have to emulsify the fat with the bile in order to absorb it. You can't really absorb fat otherwise. You can absorb a little bit, but only like some medium chain fatty acids and things like that. But if you look at the percentage of what's coming out, it's actually pretty low percentage gets absorbed without bile. So I think that your body's doing that for a reason. I think your body's making an amount of bile because it wants that much fat in return. Your body's very, very efficient. It's not just going to make a random amount of bile. I don't believe that. Everything else is so tightly regulated and controlled that it just wouldn't make sense to me that was the one thing that it just said, yeah, whatever, just make whatever you want. So either way, when you run out of bile, you're not really going to absorb fat. And so it goes out. And I think that's what keeps your stool soft in a carnivore diet. You don't need fiber for that. It keeps it soft because you have a bit of excess fat that goes in and keeps it fat. And so I think that's how you tell. If you're just eating meat and only eating meat and fat and only drinking water, not drinking coffee or artificial sweeteners that can act as laxatives, then you can just look at your stools. So if you're having dry, hard stools, that means your body's absorbing basically every ounce of fat that your body's eating. None's getting out to keep your stool soft. So increase the amount of fat that you're eating.
You said dry, hard stools?
Yeah. So like rocky.
You like it dry and hard?
Dude, you know what's so funny? I have my dogs eating a visionary pet food, the one from Ron Pena that's like keto, and their shit changed to dry, hard stools. It's like, I love picking up their poop and showing my girl because like I'll be like, feel this. This is good poop. So humans should be pooping the same way is what you're saying.
Well,
or somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah. So if it's very dry, hard, or like rocky, pebbly sort of stuff, I think that means that your body's absorbing every ounce of fat.
It's not normal to go through a roll of toilet paper.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to wipe a lot. You should be able to have like a nice clean break if
Nice
you got
taper.
good food in there. But if you eat like pizza or something, I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, but I notice if I eat like shitty foods, then I'm wiping my ass a lot.
Yeah, like the grease goes right through you, it seems like, at least in my opinion.
Very
you
messy.
have different experiences, dog.
That's true.
That's why
He's
you
got lubed up pipes over there.
got to get a bidet.
But that's the thing too. Is
Yeah,
that,
that helps a lot too.
yeah, some people get like, they like Joe Rogan talks about this when he goes on carnivores. They get some disaster pants for 3
Big
weeks or something
time.
like that. I think that's from eating a lot more fat than your body can absorb. Right. So if you eat,
And maybe even for some people it might be new to eat that much protein. You know, we sometimes forget that, like, because we're such meatheads, we forget that sometimes people are going from having like 50 to 100 grams of protein a day to now they might be having 200 or 300. So there's a huge change, and then the fat on top of that.
yeah, and it was actually funny you mentioned that. Like we're talking about Vilhjalmur Stefansson when he came back from living with the Inuits, and he discovered actually a lot of big areas in northern Canada, and he was telling people like, hey guys, like just eat meat. This is much better for your health. People were like, you're out of your damn mind, and so they actually they were sort of ruining his reputation. Basically, we got to throw this guy out as a nut. And so in order to sort of defend his reputation, he subjected himself to an experiment at Bellevue Hospital in New York. He and a partner of his, one of his Polar Explorer partners, and they're like, okay, we'll check ourselves into Bellevue Hospital. You think we're full of it? Fine. We'll live in the hospital for a year. You control what we eat. We'll only eat meat, and you'll see. We're not going to die of scurvy. And so there was all under doctor supervision, everything like that. Did it for an entire year, and they were fine. They didn't get scurvy. So like, damn it, okay. And that's when people started to pay attention to him, and he sort of saved his reputation. Wrote a book called The Fat of the Land, where he talked about all this. And one of the things that they did was the doctor was just like, all right, well, what happens if we just don't give you fat? Right? We just give you like lean meat. And they started getting like quite unwell, and they started getting just like torrential diarrhea. And so that was one of the things they got. And then they started giving him fat again, and everything normalized. But going to the opposite extreme, again, you can only absorb a certain amount of fat. If you get a little bit more than your body can absorb, I think that keeps it nice and soft, so you have comfortable stools. If you get a lot more fat than your body can absorb, it's going to come out quite dramatically, right? Because they have a lot of this liquidy stuff that needs to come out. So you're going to have liquidy stools. There's a saying that I heard when I was a kid. It's like quicker than fat through a goose, right? You give a piece of goose fat to a goose and just shift it right out, and that's why you really can't absorb it very well. It just shoots right out, and so that can happen to us. So if you're eating a lot more fat than your body can absorb, then that's going to come out. Eventually, I think that it's likely that having not eaten a lot of fat for a long time, that your body's probably not creating a lot of bile. It's like, look, we're just not getting this in return, so we're not going to create a lot of bile. And eventually, when you're eating a lot of fat, your body goes, oh, okay, and maybe increase the amount of bile. So maybe that's offsetting that. You're eating the same amount, but now you don't have loose stools. Also, a lot of people, when they're doing carnivore, most people drink coffee. And when they go on to carnivore, they keep drinking coffee. Coffee is a laxative. It does act as a laxative. And when you're eating a bunch of fiber and things like that, it has less of an effect because it has a lot more bulk to move through your intestines. But again, 98% of the meat that you eat, if you're not eating it with anything else, you will absorb in your small intestine. So there's really not much there. So the effects of coffee or artificial sweeteners will be much more dramatic, and so you'll get loose stools there. That's 95% of people with loose stools on a carnivore diet. That's what I see. They're either still drinking coffee, still using artificial sweeteners, usually in coffee, or they're eating a lot more fat than their body can absorb.
And it also just might take a couple days to resolve itself.
Yeah, or you just sort of look at those three things. Am I drinking coffee? Okay, maybe pull back on the coffee, not use these sweeteners. Does that help it? Oh, it's still a problem. Okay, pull back on the fat. And that's what I would do. And eventually I think your body will probably start making more bile. And
what about something like eat some rice or eat a couple apples or something like that to see if you can kind of stiffen up that stool a little bit?
Yeah, well, you could, and it probably would help. I think that there are other ways of doing it, and especially if you wanted to avoid those sorts of things, you could just sort of troubleshoot in those other ways as well. But yeah, there are other ways to do it. I think if you did have a bit of fiber, that would probably offset it. I do know that I got a friend of mine, Dr. Pran Yoganathan, who's a gastroenterologist, hepatologist in Sydney. He's very meat-based. He's not 100% carnivore, but he even says that actually when he's doing just straight meat, he always feels his best, but he does incorporate other things. And I know that in his patients, he does a lot of diet and lifestyle interventions as well, is that, when they're having problems with, loose stools, that, giving them sort of, some soluble fiber and things like that seems to help. So I think there's other things that can help. There's other things to work around, but I think that again, like 95% of loose stools on carnivore will come from coffee, artificial sweeteners, or just way too much fat. And I think if you sort of correct for those, it will help most people sort things out.
Pat Project family, we appreciate you checking out this clip. Check out another one. Just go check out another one. Or comment down below and let us know what you liked about this one. But we love you guys, and we're going to keep bringing you the heat. So comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff, okay? Peace.